Poverty. What do you think of? You might think of the people on the streets of LA that you might give money to. You might think of the mission trip you take every summer. You might even think of that shirt you just donated to Goodwill. Maybe you think of a world where kids in Africa are drinking contaminated water. You might think of the orphanages in Thailand or the packed streets of India. Whatever scenario came to your mind, I'm sure your emotions quickly turned to sadness, depression, maybe even fear that I was going to talk about this intense topic that's extremely overwhelming and what we feel out of reach from. And that's the issue, our perspective on poverty. Before I can get into our current perspective on poverty, what our perspective on poverty should be, first we must understand poverty. In 2015, the data from the World Bank defined extreme poverty as living off less than $1.90 a day. In the US, we know where that can get us. In India, that's not even a gallon of milk. In Thailand, that's about a dozen eggs. In the UK, that's about a 20-ounce Pepsi. And these people are living off less than that. That's extreme poverty, and that's 767 million people. There's 65% of our total world population, according to that same data, that live off of less than $2,000 a year. That's 4 billion people, and that's economically. In Rwanda, women were asked to define poverty. What they said, poverty is an empty heart. It's not knowing one's own abilities or strengths. It's not making progress. Poverty is isolation. Poverty is not having hope or belief. And now onto the perspective. We view poverty as a charity when we should view poverty as opportunity. This feeling of sadness that we get needs to be transformed to hopefulness for opportunity and our chance to make change. We should become enthusiastic to make a difference, and these people do not want to be looked down upon, but instead want to be hopeful, want to be hoped in and believed in. We view poverty and those in it as hopeless, when we should view them as powerful. Those women described it as not knowing strengths. These people have amazing potential that we don't think we can see or that they don't see themselves. An example is microloans. A while ago, Grameen Bank by Muhammad Yunus was started to give about $25 in loans to women in India. What people might think they do with this money is buy luxuries or snacks, but in reality they were buying cows, goats, chickens, seeds. From this they would get milk, eggs, and they would sell those products. From this they would get a profit. They would then transform that profit to pay back the loan, so they would get another loan, and this would be creating progress and gaining sustainability. Muhammad Yunus, the guy who started that microloan process, said that all human beings are born entrepreneurs. Some get a chance to unleash this capacity, some never get the chance. Some never knew that he or she had this capacity. These people aren't hopeless, they just need a chance. Next, we view poverty as an inconvenience, when we should view it as an economic advantage. History has shown that as people transform or transition from that deep poverty into being consumers, it opens a new market for the US. 4 billion people are making less than $2,000 a year. That's the largest untapped market we have. 1 out of 5 US jobs are export-based. 50% of those exports go to developing nations. Next, we view poverty and the solution to it as handouts, as short-term solutions, and we should reach only for sustainability. Not being able to make progress is what some of those women describe poverty as. I'm sure we've all heard the anonymous quote, "You can give a man a fish, it'll feed him for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, it'll feed him for a lifetime." In 2010, an earthquake hit Haiti. In response, the US thought the solution was to send 15,000 tons of rice to Haiti. You can imagine what that did to the economy in a place where rice is such a big food item. The rice farmers and those who created it and lived off of that product, immediately the economy dropped. The 37-year-old farmer, who makes less than $600 a year, said, "I can't make any money off my rice with all the foreign rice there is now. If I can't make any money, I can't feed my family." Our short-term solution, thinking we knew the right thing to do, completely devastated Haiti. Next, we view these people in poverty as inferior, and we should view them as equals. We often go into these places as superior foreigners, thinking we know what's best, we've had the best education, we know their culture, and we can overcome it. We can reign what they already know, and we can transform it. This is not the case when you come into a culture. They know what's best, and they know what they need. An example is the Chinese foot binding that happened. The Americans, when you think of Chinese foot binding, you often think it's disgusting, it's cruel, it's weird, it's odd. To the Chinese, it performed prestige. It showed beauty, and it was the only way they could really marry into wealth. Although it was outlawed, it still continued due to this belief that they had. The Americans, thinking with our Western culture norms, came in, trying to show them that it was cruel, that it was disgusting, that it was odd, and it was weird. This did nothing. Once we understood their perspective, that it wasn't going to change, that this was a sign of prestige, Americans thought differently. They then transformed their perspective into knowing that this was their culture, and then we had to change something else and go about it a different way. Once they saw that they could go in and kind of talk about the different ways of beauty, the different ways of making money, and the different ways of going into wealth, their perspective started to change, and slowly and surely, it ended. Next, our perspective has to go into the organizations that we see and the views that we have on them, whether they're right or wrong, and they have this perspective that we should have. For an example is Tom's. They've donated over 60 million pairs of shoes to 35 countries over a span of, I think, 6 years. It seems like a lot of good can be happening, and I'm sure short-term it is. A good free pair of shoes is always fun and it's always good. But you can imagine what happened to those shoe companies that were making money, those people that would work for those shoe companies in those communities. Tom's went in, not partnering with any organization in that community, not talking to any textiles, foundations, any factories, but simply going in and handing out shoes. People lost jobs, the shoe economy dropped, and those places that were making shoes soon ran out. We also need to have a perspective on those organizations that are doing things right. For example, we have Kiva and global communities. You can look out for places that have statements such as Kiva. Fund a loan, get repaid, and fund another one. It's not simply giving out a loan, it's not simply handing out money, but it's starting a business. We give out, it's kind of like the microloans that Grauman Bank started. You give out a loan, they work for it, they provide sustainability, they pay it back, and if they pay it back, in turn, they can get another loan. You can also look out for statements such as global communities. They state, we don't tell the community what to do, they tell us. I'm sure some churches have gone and built wells, and in reality that might be what they need and that might be what they want, but a lot of us, we go build the wells and we leave. There are so many wells not being used right now because they're broken, because we made them, we created them, and we left them. So they're not being used, they're broken, they weren't left instructions on how to fix it, and we just kind of went and left. And that's the kind of sustainability that we need to have a perspective on. So what can we do about this? Who's doing it right? How can we spread the word and make the change? Well, less than 1% of our national budget goes toward international foreign aid. The 5 bills you see listed are attempting to change that. So what can you do? You can call. You can call Congress, tell them that you support them, and tell them that you want to see these bills passed. Although a couple have already gone through the House, they have steps further to go. The 2 senators of California are listed with their phone numbers. Poverty. What do you think of? You might think of the man on the street that you can kind of tutor to get a job to work towards sustainability. You might think of the mission trip that you can partner with the community that you can learn to plan and kind of reach out and learn what they really need. You might think of the shirt you just bought to support that organization that you've researched and understood their perspective. Maybe you think of a world where opportunity equals a solution, where you learn instead of teach, and where you see only potential in these amazing people. Whatever scenario you may think, I'm sure your emotions quickly switch to excitement. Excitement and hopefulness, and maybe a readiness to take on such a powerful subject such as poverty. This feeling is the first solution to catalyze change. Into a world of change with a new perspective, and ready to make change and make a difference hand in hand. Thank you.